Wow, Florida migration is down 80% from 2022 to 2024, and it is one of the most important economic factors for real estate in Florida. And so listening to this, you're going to learn about why that is, what the direction of the real estate Florida market is based on Florida migration, and how you can prepare yourself for the future and position yourself to not lose tens of thousands of dollars potentially from the lack of migration that's now happening in Florida. Let's jump into the data and take a look. The first thing is that migration to Florida is ultimately one of the most important factors impacting the state. We'll get into why that is, but it plummeted during the 07-08 crisis. You can see here 07, 08, 09, and even 10, when the economy went down, the migration to Florida also slowed down, and we're starting to see this repeat here once again. This is because Florida does not rely on natural population growth. Here's a chart of natural population. It only goes to 2020. This is from the Florida legislature data. Florida's natural increase is actually a decrease. That's because there's more people dying in Florida than are being born in Florida. And that has to do with the median age of people and the lack of young people moving to Florida, as it's mostly retirees. But it does not rely on natural population growth. So they have to have migrants to be able to create this demand. Let's see what that looks like. And older people are relocating to Florida. Here's what it looks like. You can see the ages here, 65 plus, 75 plus, 85 plus folks are coming to Florida. And recently, a bunch of 65 plus, a lot of people from the Northeast and from the West, from high cost areas, have relocated during the pandemic. Obviously, this is the part of the time frame where the pandemic, and we saw a little bump up for the 65 plus and 75 plus people. There's a lot of retirement communities here. You think about the villages outside of Orlando and things like that, where people are relocating to benefit from the low cost and the low tax. But the reality is no longer low cost, and frankly, low tax is relative to other states, but it's gone up a lot over the last few years. And this is causing a problem today because migration is down 80% from 2022 to 2024. Again, here's the chart. This is from Resi Club. It's a great chart. And it shows that in 2022, there were 314,000 people who relocated to Florida. 2023, look, the Fed raised rates and instantly the migrants, and obviously COVID, not being as big of a deal anymore, it jumped all the way back down to the 2020 lows. And we have a feeling that the migration in 2025 will be even less. And let's dig into why that migration is dropping so rapidly. And first, let's look into the 5-year net migration to Florida by state. So most of the people are coming from New York, New Jersey, Illinois, Pennsylvania, California, Ohio, Maryland, Virginia. So high cost areas, and they're coming to Florida to save on property taxes, on state income taxes, all these other things. Now, property taxes have jumped back up. And then we have been losing people to North Carolina. A lot of people are moving to the Raleigh-Durham area. They're going to Texas, Georgia, Tennessee, so other Sunbelt type of states. South Carolina is another one. But we're basically getting a lot of wealthy people from the north and the west, and then other people are relocating from Florida to areas that are also high, people are also relocating to areas where there's low cost of living. So why do people move to Florida? We have an abundance of natural amenities, there's low cost of living, and no personal income tax. Now, this has been true over the last, decade or so until 2020 hit and just drove everything up, and there's a lot of speculation. Recently, an increasing number of Floridians are leaving the state, often citing increased cost of living, rising property taxes, rising property and auto insurance, rising housing costs, and more frequent severe weather events, right? The hurricanes continue to hit. I know that I think they projected like 18 hurricanes to hit Florida this year, something crazy like that, as we go into hurricane season. And then top destinations for those leaving Florida are either Georgia, Texas, Tennessee, or North Carolina. Other states with no personal income tax and a lower cost of living than Florida. So Florida was affordable. Just a personal note, my wife and I moved here in 2014 to Jacksonville, Florida, no state income tax. Prior to that, I was living in my mom's basement and I was working in Washington, D.C. It was so expensive. There was no way you could get out of the rat race there and save any money when you just had so much Cost of living. The prices of everything was way too high, even to use the metro to get around in and out of the city, and the amount of traffic that it had was so bad. Now, in the last decade or so, we've seen Jacksonville basically experience the same thing. It was affordable for the median income, and now it's not. And that was a lot of reasons why people were moving here, because it was affordable. Now it's not. So what is the purpose of somebody moving to Florida if it's no longer affordable? This is why we're starting to see the migration slow down. Where do people go? Well, now they're going to Texas, Tennessee, Georgia, North Carolina, and usually on the outskirts to be able to find a place where the cost of living is more achievable. Okay. So here's the projection. This is from the REC group. It's Florida's population continues to increase, but at a decreasing rate. So you can see from 2024 to 2030, they're expecting the population to grow slightly, but net migration is going to be a lot, basically going down. So it's going to grow, but it's growing at a slower and slower pace each year. The employment projection, they expect that we're going to have a bump in unemployment, actually, and then it's going to start decreasing from there. The unemployment rate, here we go, 3.4% all the way up to 4.5% in 2027, and it'll continue, and then it'll get a little bit better. So they're expecting, just because we're overpriced here, we're going to have a little bump in unemployment, and then it'll continue to move up over time. Personal income, this is the largest problem for Jacksonville specifically, is the median income no longer covers, your ability to purchase a home, even your ability to rent a home. It's very difficult. It's about $65,000, the median household income here in Jacksonville, and the average price home is $385,000 to $400,000. It's just not achievable for many families unless they have parents co-signing with them or their dual income. But even then, if they have kids, childcare costs have gone through the roof as well. So it's a huge issue. Tell us what's happening in your area. What's the personal income issues that you see that's impacting your ability to purchase? Maybe the student loans are. We're seeing a lot of childcare costs. People are starting to do a lot of homeschooling because childcare costs are so high. Commuting costs are really high. But this is Florida's personal income, and overall economy will continue to grow, but at lower rates. So their expectation is that Florida basically has priced in a lot of its growth, and it's basically turning into a mature type of state rather than an up-and-coming one. We were up-and-coming 2012 to 2014 in Jacksonville. I mean, it was a phenomenal time to get into the market. You could tell, the climate was phenomenal. It's a beach town. It's got 2 naval ports. It's got Mayo Clinic. There's a lot of businesses relocating here, their headquarters, CSX, etc. And it was a phenomenal place to be. It still is, but the cost now is what the actual issue is, and the personal income to cover that cost just isn't there, and that is what is slowing things down. The number of visitors to Florida continues to increase at a lower growth rate, according to their information that they have. This is the thousands of visitors who are joining. So the total visitors, they're expecting to increase but at a slower rate, and even in 2027 get down to 0%. So everybody's kind of saying, hey, 2026, 2027 is going to be a very hard year for Florida specifically as we see the economy contract, and this will impact housing, of course, because it'll slow migration and visitors. Here's the summary of Florida's economic forecast, 2024 to 2030. Florida's economic growth, here you can see it's slowing down from 3.6%. Again, a lot of migration. The migration is slowing, and we expect it to slow down here as well. There's other economic factors at play here, and the income growth here we think will stabilize and hopefully continue to will move up over time. Overall, Florida's economy is now set to return to pre-pandemic growth rates over the next 6 years. So we had the Fed come in, they reduced rates to 0. A lot of speculators and investors came into Florida and bid up the property prices, either by flipping or doing buy and holds, and it just blew up the real estate industry, which we'll get into is one of the largest impactors of Florida GDP is real estate. So if real estate slows down, then everything else in Florida slows down. Well, what impacts real estate? Migration, because we don't have the birth rates. So it all is connected into migration and affordability, and unfortunately migration is going down and affordability is at the worst it's pretty much ever been. And after these 3 years of basically massive economic growth, we're going to go back to the regular trend line that we're experiencing before that growth. Here's the active real estate inventory. It is up 375% since 2022. So the Fed raised rates in March of 2022, and then boom, you see massive amounts of inventory to continue to come on. Now we're above our 2017 and 2016 numbers, and we expect more inventory to come on over the next few months here going into the end of the year. Real estate is very cyclical. In August, when school starts, sales drop by about 50%. If you're a seller right now, I would get your house listed and sold immediately if you need to sell. Otherwise, you'd be catching a falling knife here going into next busy season, because we are seeing an 8 to 10% increase in active inventory locally per week, which is absolutely insane. So we expect the housing inventory to continue to move up every single month going into the end of the year. In Jacksonville, we have about 12,000 active listings. By the end of the year, we could end up having 18,000. That's my projection. We'll bookmark this video and see if I'm correct on my projection. I was bullish on real estate from 2014 since I got here until 2022. And then once I saw the writing on the wall and looked into this data, it made no sense to purchase now. It makes more sense to rent, and renters can negotiate like crazy because now there's vacancies. And so the apartment vacancies are starting to move up. So obviously you can see the vacancy, skyrocketed during the recession, 2008, 2009, and then started coming back down as affordability. It started becoming more affordable and vacancy went down. Now it's starting to curve up. We expect it'll continue to move up moving forward. Florida is the builders went crazy, especially here in Jacksonville. I mean, there's a new construction community on every corner. There have leasing specials everywhere. People who are currently renting here are looking around the corner saying, hey, that person, that has a new unit and it's renting for $500-$600 less than this one. You guys need to negotiate with me on my rent. Otherwise, I'm going to move to this other location. I've had, owners reach out to me saying, hey, we have to cut our price by $400. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to rent out to this tenant, and you're going to gamble on another tenant coming in. So this is a huge issue, especially because we see insurance and tax costs go up. If your rent goes down, you could be underwater on your rental very, very quickly. This is, of course, apartment vacancy, but it is the same thing with single family rentals. The apartments are out of control. They're still building massive amounts of supply. Why? Because it takes a year or two to build a lot of these apartments. And if they've already broken ground, they have to finish the project as the bank financing started. All the documents are signed. The construction people are hired. They have to finish the project. So we could be sitting here with a ton more inventory over the next few years that is really going to drive down rents. And it's going to be getting worse. This is a report by the pods, like the storage pods. By analyzing pods' net long distance moving numbers between January 2024 and March 2025 and comparing those to previous years, we're able to weed out both temporary hotspots and long-term draws, right? So they're looking through the data that they have on their pods, where they're going and where they're coming from. We can also more clearly identify cities, states, regions that have continued to lose residents for years, regardless of the trends. This is how you get an insider view of what's going on. I think it's really great. Are people still moving to Florida? This is their answer. Yes, people are still moving to Florida, but it's no longer a hotspot of years past. Between 2021 and 2023, Florida consistently had at least 6 cities in our list of top cities people are moving to, but this year there are only 2, Ocala and Jacksonville. Ocala is still on fire. They actually have somebody relocating to Ocala every 30 minutes. In Jacksonville, I can tell you this was a report that had 2024 data. I am getting, word on the ground that a lot of people are losing their jobs from the high cost, high tax areas, from the return to work. And then they need to sell their house. They're underwater in their house and they don't have the wages here to be able to pay for that house. So they're short selling their house and moving back home. We're seeing a lot of this already. The market isn't even that bad yet. And this is what we're seeing. So I think this pods report is a little bit behind, but it is true. Ocala is still a great place to invest. Jacksonville is too, but you just have to have the right area and negotiate the right terms, and you need a top person to be able to guide you through that. You can't just go with the bottom, 80% of real estate agents and then expect to be able to get a good deal and be guided appropriately. I'd really interview around and make sure you get with some of the best of the best. If you need to figure out who those people are, I've been doing this for more than a decade. I've got 250 people who work for me, and we're constantly interviewing realtors to see who are the good ones. Let me know. I can get you in touch with the best of the best based on the area that you are buying in, because that is the most important thing. They need to know every area of Florida and even in Jacksonville, the largest city by landmass. you need to get the person who specializes in that specific area. They're going to be able to tell you the pros and the cons, and it's going to make a huge difference and save you tens of thousands of dollars. So here's the pods data on the ground. It feels completely different, but Jacksonville is, let's see, right here, number 10, ninth in 2024 for the 20 cities with the highest number of move-ins ranked. Now, I think I think we're going to move down in the rankings in 2025. I hate to say that because I live here and I do a lot of real estate here locally, but what we're seeing on the ground is that people just can no longer afford the prices here from the rent and from the houses. And this is why I'm excited. Like, housing prices have to come down. Like, it's just a matter of a market. The market's always changing. Prices coming down isn't necessarily a bad thing. It sucks if you're in it and you need to move right when the market's moving down. Generally, if you need to stay in the house for the next 10 to 15 years, you're not going to have an issue at all. But for those who are moving in and out and jumping in and out for the next year or two, it's a huge problem. So during recessions, Florida suffers. There's decreased job opportunities. There's reduced wealth, right? Retirees, 401ks are turning into 301ks. And right now there's a massive lack of affordability, and they're building properties, but they're still like in the unaffordable price points. They're usually $500,000 plus. There's some pockets of areas and some builders that will do these spec homes for, $200,000, $300,000, but then you have the association fees. Some of them have CDD fees. There's other fees that you need to be on the lookout for. And ultimately, a slowdown in population growth is going to slow down the Florida real estate market. And that is exactly what we're seeing. So here's the IBIS World Data population of cities. This is the Florida population statistics. And as you can see, Duval County has annual growth rate of from 2020 to 2025 of 1.2%. That's pretty solid. But you can actually look at this report and see where your city is in Florida. I recommend you go check this out and you can see which areas are growing the most. And the number one issue, again, is this affordability problem that is causing people like us who would have moved here in 2014. They can't move here anymore because the prices have gone up, more than double since we moved here. So the median age of the U.S. home buyer, look at this. Repeat home buyers is 61 years old. All home buyers is 56, and first-time home buyers is 38. So people are waiting longer to form families. They're waiting longer to be able to purchase a house. They're renting for a longer period of time. They're trying to figure out where they're going to be long-term, and they're often very mobile. And it's a problem for the housing market. We expect that the median age of U.S. home buyers and sellers will continue to move up. And at one point, it's just going to be boomers trading housing to other boomers that want to relocate, while the people in the messy middle, if prices don't come down here, which I fully expect prices to come down 30% in the next couple of years here from the peak. We're already down 10% in a lot of areas, and the number of sales is the lowest it's been since the great financial crisis, but our inventory locally, the housing inventory, is double, which is crazy to me. So that means we're in a really bad spot. We're in a super affordability crisis, and this is why we're seeing the median age of home buyers move up. So what do you see happening next in your market? Do you see migration dropping off? We want to hear if you're seeing stories of people who are now relocating back to where they came from after moving to Florida. And do you think this migration will cause the Florida housing bubble to pop? We certainly see this being one of the major factors, is the slowdown. We also see Zillow, which is the online lead aggregator. The leads coming in are super slow, and those are usually people who search on Zillow or people who are out of state, don't have an agent yet, and they click to find an agent, and that's really slow, and that's a major leading indicator. What do you see locally? Thanks for subscribing. Go to my like and comment, and then go below. I think you can find my Substack information. I post information there that I can't say on YouTube, and you can go look there for that information, and we can talk offline if you need anything. You can check out my website, the thinkbigquestioneverything.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.